Hi, I'm Dami from eLearning Channel Museum. Finally, today is our last session of basic course. We reached lesson 10. Today's lesson is a little longer, so I divide it into two sessions. First one is sight reading and techniques, and second one is the song itself. So for now, we will start with technique and sight reading. First, sight reading. In this lesson, we're going to learn middle C, step up D, and step down B, which we already know, C, D, B. But there are different ways to write it, D and B's. How are you going to write it, D, from bass clef? Or how are we going to write it, B, from treble clef? That's what we're going to learn today. Let's go. In this lesson, we're going to learn B and D, which we already know. But there are different ways of writing it. So we're going to learn that one. Now, if you're looking at the score, there are B with the bass clef and C with the bass clef, the red one, right? And if you see the next one after the equal, that's the same C, but start with right hand. Why? Because it's belong to treble clef and stepping up. So in the red box, the C means they are the same note, but the way of writing is completely different. So you see it, you will see so many times these notes, but you have to know that's always this middle C, no matter what. Okay? Now the next note is bass clef C, definitely. And what is the next note? Going up, step up. So that note, D. Have you ever seen that one before? That's the same as the red one, treble clef D, the same note. But the way of writing is different, just like middle C. So you have to remember the new note, D, but belongs to left hand, bass clef D, not the treble clef D, but they are the same D. Whenever you see the bass clef Ds, you have to play here. Okay? What about next one? Middle C, treble clef middle C, and line 2 space is going down, gets lower. So where is going to be? That note. C, B. That's the same as left hand B. But if you see notes like that, you have to go down with your right hand. You can go this way or you can go that way. It really doesn't matter. But the B is belong to treble clef, not the bass clef. But when you play piano, it's the same note. Let's find hand position. It starts with the treble clef C. That means you have to play with your right hand middle C here. Yes, that's we know already. What about the next note? Yes, that's the note that we have just learned. C, to step down. B. But how are we going to play it? You can go down like this, but since we have to come back, if you see the next note, you have to come back to C again. Then that's not smart to play it. C moving 1-2 times is not really good. So there is another technique, crossing over. Finger number 2, cross it over 1 and coming back to C again, like this. So C, step down, C, come back again, and step up. Up, up, down, down. That's the first 2 measures for right hand. Now, what about the next measure? Starts with C again, but closer to bass clef. So start with your left hand, C, and it's going down. You can see it, right? So step down, B, and coming back to C again. The next note is the one that we have just learned. What is it? Line 2 space going up. Line 2 space going up. Step up. D, yes. That's the same thing. instead of closing up like this, since you have to come back to C again, finger number 2 cross over 1 and coming back again. So practice a couple of times. Little bit, if you move your elbow a little bit side, then it's easier to cross it. Okay, so let's just start. C, B, C, cross it over 2, C, come back again, step down, down, G. What about second line? C again with the treble clef. So right hand takes the C and the next note is going down. Where? Going down. That way. This way is going down. Right side is going up. Not like this way is going up and that way is going down. Right? C, going down. So step down B, C, step up, up. Oh, the next note is challenging. You got it, right? Not yet? That's D, right next to each other. But you have to play with your left hand. What is the finger number? You can play with finger number 2 and C with 1. Step down, 1 with the C. And what about the next note? How far is that? It's kind of confusing. A is G. Space note for bass clef is A is G. So top space is a G. So G here. A. And then the next note is closer to treble clef. It's really far, looks far, but actually that's the B here, right next to each other. B, C, and then left hand C, right hand C. So basically in this sight reading, we learn how to play it, right hand cross it over the B going down, and left hand from C to cross it over to going up D. And then the other thing is C, 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 shifting hands between right and left hand. So you have to be able to read B and D, the different way of writing. Finally, in technique, we're going to learn chords. What is the chord? And how to play it. We're not going to learn all the chords today, but at least we will learn very basic of the chord. Let's move it on to the chord. In this technique lesson, we're going to learn what is the chord. First, the chord means play more than 2 notes at the same times. It can be 3 or it can be 4 or it can be 5, but it has to be more than 2, so that way we know which chord it is. But when we talk about the basic chord, it always have to be 3 actually. Okay, out of 3, if we leave it at 1, we still know that's a C chord. But the basic is always built on 3. Now let's see. Do you see the C? And built up line to line and goes to the next line. If it's a line note, it always have to be built on line. Or if it's a space note, it has to be always built on space. Okay, these 3 notes are we call chords. Since this one is built up on C, the very bottom note is a C, we call this one as a C chord. Why? Because that's gonna take the family names. We call that one root. Root means very bottom. So this is a C chord. If you see the next one, do you see C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C going up from C to C? That's the letter names, right? But it can be also chord names when they were built above the notes. Now let's see what's gonna happen. From C to line, built it up, that's a C chord. What if from D to space, built it up? That's a D chord. And if we built it up from E to line, this is an E chord. If we built based on F, space to space to space, F chord. The same way, G, line to line to line. So we always have to be skip, skip, skip. Line, 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 or space to space to space. That's the very basic of the chords. Now, of course, some chords, there are major and minor or more diminished, augmented, but we're gonna learn that one later. For now, we will learn what is the chord. Chord is more than 2 notes played at the same time, but basic chord is 3 notes. From very bottom note to build it up above, if it's a line note, it has to be line, line. Or if it's a space note, it has to be space, space. Anyway, skipping it. E, skip, skip. F, skip, skip. G, skip, skip. That's the chord. Do you see it? So very bottom note is G. So that's why this one takes the chord name, G chord. Now, what if I play it like this? Yes, this is chord, but this is not D chord. Why? Because from D to E, skip the more than. Skip, right? Skip. If it's D chord, it has to be F instead of this note, right? So this is not D chord. Then how do we know? You have to move this one up D, the same D here. Then it will be skip, skip. And then this very bottom note is a G. Root is G. So that we know it. This is G chord. That's how you figured it out, the chord. See it? So for example, let's see. Now let's see. The bottom note is F, B, D. But this is not F chord. Why? Because from F to more than skip. These 2 notes are skip, right? So these 2 are okay. This one is by itself. It's more than skip. Then always move this note up. F, move it to up this F. Then you will find skip, 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 right? Then this is B chord. We don't know B major, B minor, B diminished, B augmented. That one we're going to talk about later. We just need to figure it out, the chord's name for now. So that's how you need to learn. This is how you read the chords. Do you see? So C chord, because the very bottom is a C. D, skip, 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 D chord. E, skip, 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 E chord. F, skip, 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 F chord. G, skip, 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 G chord. A, skip, 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 A chord. B, skip, 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 very bottom is B, so B chord. And then coming back to C again. Oh, then there is a C. You said line note. C is line note. How come this is a C on space? There are so many C's, right? This C, middle C, treble C, bass C, high C, low C. Every C will have different shapes, like different notes. Bass note, middle note, bass note, middle C, treble C. Since there are so many C's, the chords, C chords, will be lots of different positions, but it will be all known as a C chord. This time, we're actually going to play chords. Most of the time, chords are played on left hand rather than right hand. So we will start just playing on the left hand today. Let's find hand position. It starts pretty low, right? What is the very bottom note of the first chord? It's 2 lines below the 5 lines. So what is going to be? Do you remember the C families? Yes, the lowest C that we have learned was low C. Yes, where is low C? Middle C, bass C, which is second from the space, bass space, and low C. So actually the very bottom note is starts on here to skip, skip. Yes, that's a C chord, the weak chord. Why? Because that's the bottom note is a C. We have just talked about it. Now that's 4, 2, 3, 4 chord, 4 count. And then what about the next one? Just it's all step up. Up. And the next note is stepping up. And the following note is up, up, line to space, whole entire thing is going up. Yes, just shifting up. Of course, I didn't count. It's a 2 count. Some are half note, some are whole note. So when you start practicing it, you have to count. But for now, we're talking about where is the position. Now, the first note, from here to the next note, when you shift it up, lift whole entire note and shift like this. Don't try to look for each note. So once you play it, lift and just shift it up and down. Lift, shift, down. Lift, shift, down. That's how it looks like if I play a slow motion. Just I will set my hands as it is. The distance doesn't move. It will be just set it like this. And then shift it up like a machine as a unit. Whole entire arms, hands, and fingers will be all the same shape. It will keep the same shape. And shifting down, up, wherever it needs to go. Okay, let's start from very beginning. The first line is just barely stepping up from C to bass C. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, play. 1, 2, 3, 4, and lift and shift it up. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. There is one thing. When you play a chord, normally your wrist will be a little bit lower than regular playing. Why? Because your thumb has to be lining up with your wrist. That way it's gonna make all the same note sound. Otherwise, if you're dropping it, your finger number 1 is shorter than your finger number 3. Then what's gonna happen? Sound will be this one, finger number 3 will touch the first, and finger number 1 will touch the later. Then sound will be like this. To make clean, dropped at the same time, you have to make sure your wrist is a little bit low, not too much below the piano, but just make it straight with your finger number 1 and your elbow. Do you see it? Mine are straight like this. So just from here to just siding up, drop it and lift it up. Okay. Now the next second line is start from this bass C to going up and down technique. 1, 2, lift it up and up, drop, up, move it up, and then going down. 1, 2, going down, 2, going up again. 1, 2, going up, 1, 2, going up, 2, going down, 1, 2, going down, 1, 2, going down, 1, 2, going down to C, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you just need to practice a couple of times just by line. Maybe practice the first line a couple of times and then move it on to the second line and do the third line. And if you can play it well, then play it all 3 lines together. So in this lesson 8, we learn sight reading and techniques. Of course, I will edit right away the songs. But the reason why I divide into, because it's a too long video, so I will cut it. So you can just take it out the part which you need and watch it and practice over and again. In this technique, you have to working on chords, as I mentioned. Leave it at the same time. If you see it, thumb supposed to be dropped at the same time with the other fingers, finger number 3 and 5. Do you see it? It's supposed to be lined. Not too low from your keyboard, but not too high. Just like literally line it up. I will just sit it straight and I will show you. Do you see how it looks like? So remember only these things. This technique will be the basic of the songs, which we're gonna learn tomorrow. Lean on me. So to play it well and to easy, you have to practice your left hand chords first. So just practice today, go through, and of course after you see the song, you have to keep practice these techniques and sight reading every day until you get comfortable. And enjoy your practice and see you tomorrow.